Welcome back to the Strength and Speed podcast. I'm your host, Strength and Speed owner and Conquer the Gauntlet pro, Evan Perperis. I've got a co-host with me and a guest on the line. Before we get to them, though, a quick word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Exoskin. If you're not familiar with Exoskin, they make compression socks, they make compression shorts, they make compression underwear and compression shirts. You can use code STRENGTH20 to save 20% off Exoskin off the website exoskin.us. And they're veteran-owned company, so we're recording this the day after Memorial Day, so obviously a lot of veteran ties there. So always a fan of supporting veteran companies, and their products are great. Our next guest on the podcast, we have John Kelly, who is one of the only finishers, I think there's been about 15, of the Barclays Marathon. So he's got some really interesting stuff and really interesting tips for ultra endurance, especially like multi-day stuff. So that episode is actually recorded already, but I wanted to get this episode out first before we publish that next episode. So look for that episode next. Pick up some Exoskin, and let's jump into today's episode. So joining me as a co-host, I have another Conquer the Gauntlet pro, Ashley Samples. Ashley, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Cool, and we got Ashley on because, one, she's fun to talk to, and two, because one of the races we were talking about, she just competed in this past, or I guess it was a couple weeks ago now.
Yep. Hildervat.
Yeah. Cool. So our guest today is Aliyah Emas. So Aliyah, say hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So I'm going to run through your bio real quick, and then we're going to jump into a little bit about her. We're going to talk about the Hildervat race that both Aliyah and Ashley were at, and then we're going to jump into talking about Frontline, which Aliyah and I were both at this past weekend. So Aliyah is a certified personal trainer with a master's in exercise sports sciences, specializes in sports psychology, and is a small business owner. They have the business League of Extraordinary Fitness. That's Extraordinary Fitness with an X for extraordinary. She's competed in a variety of sports going up through high school and then into college, and then in some of her personal time, right? So things like softball, cross country, rowing, and then now kind of jumps around doing all sorts of stuff over the last couple of years, including stuff like, strongman, or I guess strong woman it would be, figure competitions, CrossFit, obstacle course racing, triathlons, marathons, ninja competitions. Got a bunch of specializations and certifications from NASM, so certified personal trainer, performance enhancement specialization, corrective exercise specialization, senior fitness specialization, women's fitness specialization. And then she's been doing great this year. So in 2021, first place female at Frontline Special Forces Division, second place female at Battle of the Lions, Texas, first place female Phoenix OCR Georgia, first place female Phoenix OCR Mississippi, second place female OCR Overlord. Got some age group wins here, and then has another kind of her big win from the last couple of years. Third place female age group 2018 North American OCR Championships, along with a smattering of other podiums. I'm not going to read them all because we'd be here for a couple of minutes, just kind of running through results. And then I was also gotten top 3 at several figure competitions in 2 different organizations, USBF and NGA, as well as winning her division lightweight in strong woman back in 2013, 2015. So Aliyah, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Cool. So I'm excited to talk to you. I really think your background's interesting, kind of bouncing around a lot, mirrors some of my personal background. So let's start off there, and then we're going to jump a little more into how you're prepping and preparing for obstacle course racing. So tell me about why were you bouncing between sports, and, are you still doing that, and kind of give me some of the logic of what's going on there.
Well, I think I bounce around a bit because when I was growing up, my parents put me in a lot of different sports, not just one, and it kept me very engaged, and it developed me in a very athletic way, so I could just jump into any sport kind of like a chameleon and be pretty good at it. I might not be the best, but be above average in it. And when I graduated college, I was trying to find sports to do because I rode in college, and then I also did club softball. So when you graduate, you're like, what am I going to do with my life now that I don't have something that took up so much time? And I look for different avenues to jump into. And I like anything that seems somewhat of a challenge and is physically exerting. And I won't shy away from anything. If it sounds interesting, I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Whether I've been training for it or not. And actually, when I first started doing OCR, I actually had I had a broken foot, and someone at a gym that I was working at dropped a dumbbell on my foot and broke my foot a week before a CrossFit competition. So I couldn't compete. And then I did a figure competition right after that. I just did a whole bunch of upper body because I couldn't do my lower body. And then there was a race that qualified me for North American Championship. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, my foot's okay. And that kind of steamrolled into maybe I should actually put more effort into this obstacle course racing stuff. And when COVID hit, a lot of the CrossFit competitions and stuff weren't happening, but some local OCR events were still taking place. So I probably would still be bouncing around a bit just because I like to stay engaged. And the different sports do different things for me. Like I've learned different things by competing in various sports, both as a trainer and an athlete, which I think helps me when I coach people. Because like I said, I'm a small business owner and I work with everyday people who just want to lose weight or get stronger. And I work with some athletes and individuals who have some special disabilities that require a lot more creative thinking when trying to improve their coordination.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, as a personal trainer, you know, I get that. I think as if I was a client working with a personal trainer, I think it would be cool, you know, having a trainer who has a wide range of experience in the background, because you can understand, you don't understand a lot of the nuances that are hard to really grasp unless you've done that sport or something similar to that sport. So that gives you a really nice base there.
Yeah, there's.
Yeah,
No, go ahead, Ashley.
I was just going to say, and you can really introduce, you know, your clients to different things that maybe they haven't been exposed to, you know, different sport-wise with your background, being able to kind of guide them into the experience of trying new fitness avenues.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, because when I worked for a company, it was a big corporation, and I did corporate fitness, I had a lot of individuals who I worked with on site at that facility, and I made corporate teams, big corporate teams that were 50 plus people who started participating in events that they never thought they actually would do. For instance, we've done the Tough Mudder for 2 years in a row, and massive corporate team. And then some other ones were a CrossFit competition and a CrossFit-like competition. And it's fantastic seeing their improvement, as well as seeing how they are processing their accomplishments. And that's so rewarding for me to see.
Gotcha. So are you in OCR for good now, or are we still dipping our toe in some other fitness competitions as they come up?
I'm probably going to be dipping my toes into other things as well, just because I like it. And I think that's what makes me so good at the sports that I do. My training is so different, which allows me to jump into any sport. So some of the, like these, I haven't done competitions in these, but I've thought about it, is there's a lyra hoop or not, and then pole dancing, because those are very athletic and they require a lot of upper body and core strength, and how you have to move your body in space. And then you come back to an OCR race when you go to those very technical rigs. It helps you finagle through it that other people might not have the body awareness to handle, and they feel very uncoordinated. And that's just like one of the things that could translate to it and that I dip my toe in just for fun because I like it. And
Gotcha. Yeah, no, makes total sense. Now, one of the things we like to do on our podcast is ask people to pull in lessons learned from other sports. Now, you have, again, as we were just talking about, you have a pretty diverse background. So is there any, I don't know if you want to do, either by sport or kind of like an overarching theme, some of the stuff you learned just from competing in all these different events and categories that you can think our listeners, who are primarily all obstacle course racers, could pull into apply to their training or racing?
I would say I'd probably do it a little. I'll take the main sports that I did or that I feel had a big impact. Rowing is a very painful sport. You can't see me, but I'm laughing. I'm smiling because I like that environment and I thrive in that environment. And so rowing, it's not like, oh, let me go for a casual run. You have to push so hard during like a 2K. A 2K is probably the one most like, it's so painful because you get to that level and then when you're rowing, it's almost like a sprint the entire time. And at the very end, you have to even go a little bit more. If you think about like those top-notch marathon runners who are running, 5 whatever minute miles, and then they can sustain that for so long. And at the very end, they just, if they can, they got to pick it up just a little bit more. And so rowing taught me to endure through much discomfort. And then the figure competitions that I've done, when you do that type of competition, it's patience. You do not see what you look like on stage until show day, and you have to trust the process. So when you are training, especially if you're beginning or even if you're advanced, the results don't happen right away. And just because you don't see them doesn't mean they're not still happening. For the CrossFit, I love CrossFit. It's very intense. It's short. It's bursts of high intense energy. And that one probably has taught me a lot in strength, and that probably breathing through the discomfort is what will get you through the discomfort. It is finding a way to settle into that feeling and then persevering through it.
Gotcha. Does that wrap them up, or do you have any more?
Well, I could add the strongman in there, but that's pretty much like I pick things up and put things down. And so they're odd objects. So if I have to carry something, whether it's like a weird log or carries, those things have just taught me how to use my body as a tool, as opposed to just thinking it can only do this in one specific way. Gotcha.
And I imagine some of the, obviously you're in a lightweight division, but still some of the weights you're moving, it makes I would say the obstacles probably seem lighter, or like the weights you have to carry at obstacles seems lighter if you've lifted heavier stuff in practice and in other competitions. So.
Oh yeah. Like, sometimes I think the things that we have to lift, especially when they separate what the men and the women do, is silly. That's just my opinion, but sometimes they sometimes they're excessively light because they don't think, well, who knows what they think, but they're excessively light, or to me, they feel light. That doesn't mean other people won't struggle with them. And I know that at the Spartan race in Florida, Jacksonville, earlier this year, a lot of the men actually struggled with the tire and opted to burpee out instead of flip it. And what I heard was it was how it was positioned on the ground. Like the women's was in the dirt, so they could get their hands under it, whereas the men was in a slightly different grounding, and it was hard for them to get underneath the tire. Do I believe that? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they just can't figure out how to maneuver the tire, you know?
Well, I'm sure you really loved the bucket carry then at Hildervat, because I know, like, I'm super tiny, like lifting heavy is not my thing. A, I don't like it, and B, I'm just small to begin with. But I literally laughed when I picked up the women's bucket for the first time at Hildervat, and I was like, this cannot weigh more than like 3 pounds.
It felt like a cloud. It did.
It was really funny. It might as well have been empty. I got a good laugh out of that.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that bucket carry. That was very light, especially in contrast to the sandbag. If it got caught, if the carabiner got caught, then it felt.
Yes. You had to pick the lane very strategically for the hoist.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I'm looking at your results, and again, it seems like, like you said, we were kind of bouncing off all over the place for a while, and then in 2019, and then 2021, I mean, it's just like these ton of like great OCR results and podium finishes at smaller events, and top 10 finishes at bigger events. What do you have on your, I don't know if we want to call it a bucket list, or like, in the next year or so, events that you're like, oh, I definitely want to compete at this, and test myself in this category, etc.
Ooh. Well, I must say one of my favorite races is Savage, and I am thoroughly enjoying what they're doing with the rig now, even though there's a bit of debate about women completing it, percentage rates of completing it, and the fact that the rigs are super challenging, or at least they have one that is very challenging. And so I want to continue to compete in that one. I actually am going to their North Carolina race, which I'm super stoked about.
Same.
Oh, yay. Good. Because I have missed a couple of their races due to other races and overlapping time frames. So I'm like so ready. And I wish I was able to go to their Ohio race that everyone was like, nobody can complete this rig. And 3 women did. And so outside that, I'm looking forward to Worlds. The Battle Lines race, their grip one was pretty fun. Anything with grip is probably my favorite. I'm just a rig whore. I love them. The more the merrier, the harder the better. And so, what else do I have? So Worlds, and then at some point, as my speed gets better, depending on dipping my toes in other things, I do want to do the Worlds at the pro level. I just don't feel like I'm fast enough yet.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Have you considered doing Indian Mud Run?
Oh, yes, I do. I've heard good things about it. It was on my list of races this year, but due to things going on in my personal life, I am not doing it. However, that doesn't mean I might have an impulsive moment where I just, hey, I'm going to do this race this week.
And where are you based out of? Sorry.
I'm in PA, in Philadelphia.
Okay, right on. Ashley, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that Indian Mud Run would be very good for your preferred race style. I mean, they have so many upper body intense obstacles, and they come out with surprises and stuff. And I mean, a lot of times what you see at Indian Mud Run is kind of a preview of what you can expect to see at Worlds, at least from what I've seen in the past.
That's good to know.
Yeah, Hubie is he just loads up the course with obstacles, just packs it. So I actually haven't been, but I'm going in June this year for the first time. despite the fact that like I'll be in the middle of moving houses. I was like, yeah, we'll go for it. My wife's like, oh, good. Let's go to a race while moving. I was like, yeah. So
Awesome. I didn't know you were going. Good.
Yeah.
I'll be there too.
Cool. Should be a little reunion.
You might have convinced me. Who knows? We'll see.
So what do you
I'm
what
sure
do you
I'll
consider
regret that.
what do you consider your specialty distance, or like what's your favorite distance?
My specialty distance is like anything not long.
See, you gotta define long though, because when someone says long to me, I'm like, we're like starting at like 6+ hours, and then everything else is short.
No, like 6+ miles is long.
I actually think it depends on the race, because if I do an obstacle race that is 15 miles, but has more running between obstacles, and the obstacles are not that they need to be equidistant, but if they are huge gaps of running compared to obstacle dispersion, that is where I probably would do well, but not as good as if they were more scattered throughout. So it depends on the race, but I'd probably say the races that are under 9 miles, like probably the 3K in the worlds to maybe the 15K, because my first year I got third in the 15K, and then the second year I got first in the 3K at Worlds. So for my age group though, not pro. So I think it really depends on the race. So for Hildervat, that one was not long, but the map was did not match what the course actually looked like. Not in a bad way, just so there was, and Ashley likes running, so she was probably like, oh, that run was so short. But so the run between the road climb to the crawl, and then from the bucket carry back, it wasn't long, but because that race was shorter, that length of a run was more of a hindrance to me in that shorter race, where if maybe put like another obstacle in the middle and I would have done a little bit better. And I'm not saying make the races like for me, but so that's why I think the distance depends on the race.
Gotcha.
Because I did an ultra like for shits and giggles last year. Like, I'm just gonna. I raced the day before. It was their 6-mile race, and I'm getting first. And it's like, oh, why not? Let's do this 8-hour ultra. And then I ended up winning that one, and I was like, what the heck is wrong with you? This is not what you. But it was because of the type of obstacles that they had in it and how they were set up. And also sometimes it's who goes.
You're right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and we did find out at Hildervat, I mean, it was on the beach. So, if running was your strength, it was not necessarily going to be your strength at that race because it was all sand. So, you can be a fast runner, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a strong runner when you're put on that kind of terrain.
Correct. Very true.
Now, I want to jump into Hildervat. Before, though, one more question about your personal training. So take me through like a week in your training, like how are you balancing, your obstacle/strength training versus your speed/endurance training, and kind of like, give me kind of like a rundown of what you do in an average week, assuming you're not racing on that Saturday.
Okay. So part of my training, so it shifts once it turns into race season. So my end of fall, winter looks a little bit different than my spring training. I've recently added more running in. So I run in the mornings, and they're heart rate runs for the most part with some compromised running involved. And then in the afternoons, I'm doing a bit of strength with some technique stuff and a lot of the grip stuff. So for people who are like, oh, I need to get that obstacle and practice, that's not true. If anyone tells you that, that's bullshit. It's how you're training your grip with what you have. You don't need to go buy a whole bunch of things. Sure, having things helps, yes. But you can get creative at home because the obstacles get creative. And doing things with what you have around the house. But for instance, before, like I did my first Spartan ever was after I graduated college, just for like, hey, I haven't done anything, let me do something. And I would go to my grad school gym. They had nothing that I could train on. So I would just jump to the top of the squat rack and I would shimmy around the perimeter of it with my fingers.
Yes, thank you. I recommend that in my book because of specifically for training for Stairway to Heaven, because it has like that false grip, like thumbless grip. Oh, yeah. Sorry. So perfect. I 100% approve. Keep going.
So you get creative that way, like in your house. If you have door frames, practice on door frames. Practice on the edge of the door. And I have a thing set up in my house. It's literally in the backyard. It's made up of like different lids, like protein bottle lids that are really big, tennis balls, the lacrosse balls, my dog eats, Gatorade bottle tops. And it's a wall traverse, but it's practicing different holds with just my fingers, or take bottles of water and fill them up and carry them by the bottom. And that hold with the water in it will get very more taxing than walking around carrying a dumbbell, because you can wrap your entire fingers around it. So my training has a little bit of that, a fair bit of strength training, because I also love Olympic lifting and I like strength work. So not only do I train for these, but I also need to keep myself happy with things that I like to do, which is probably why at a moment's notice I might just jump into any competition that I want to. But I feel like my training prepares me for that, so that way I can handle it and do fairly well. So run in the mornings and then lift and a conditioner. Conditioner is, it could have running in it, but it might resemble something like a CrossFit Metcon. Not all the time, but it varies. It could be more technically based with grip stuff. It could be more strongman oriented with tires. So that's pretty much how my week goes. And I have certain lifts that I do on Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday is just running. Thursday is typically a active recovery day. Then I have Friday. Saturday is more intense and has usually a longer run. And Sunday is a full rest day, but I'll probably walk and try to stretch. And that's pretty much what my week would look like, in addition to adding things here and there. Like, it's raining. Let me go and play on the pull-up bar because, why not? I'm going to have to train in the rain. Or I'm going to do an extra core workout today. So you scatter those things in that are extra, but will enhance and support your training, as well as help keep you at a level you can sustain. Like a lot of people, I feel like either do too much. Like I've met people who are like, I'm going to run every day and I'm going to increase my mileage over the course. And I'm like, I would highly recommend you don't do that, because you're just going to tax yourself out. You're not doing things to support the muscles that you're recruiting to run. And a lot of people think if you do the same thing every day, you're going to get faster or better. And the body doesn't really work like that. sure, with some things, it's really confidence and muscle memory and neuro connections that are actually getting better, especially if you're newer. Right. That will develop. But day in, day out, if you do the exact same thing, if I do 200 sit-ups every day, that's not really going to give me a stronger core or a six-pack, or that's just a repetitive motion, not something that will improve you.
Gotcha. Yep, good advice. Got a stress system, allow for recovery, and vary your training. You also mentioned something about using different grips that I know I've been at hotel gyms on work trips and like not had access to my normal equipment. I actually have used the bottom of the dumbbell, so like I'm gripping it by the the actual weight of the dumbbell as like a thick bar or an awkward hold, and then like doing like little laps around the little hotel gym, like holding onto these like 15-pound dumbbells by the ends. So
no, that's a great one. I have that. I have to do that too. And then the heavier the dumbbell, the wider that the head of the dumbbell gets. Right. You're like, oh my god, yeah. Or cinder blocks. You can get them at pretty much a Home Depot, a Lowe's, and that they can be grip, they can be strength, they can be technical. Depends on what you do and how creative you want to get.
Gotcha. And let's start jumping into Hildervat. So let's start off with Ashley. Give me a quick rundown of the event. And I know there was like several different divisions and kind of categories or whatever.
Yes. So they had, which was different, something we haven't seen really. I mean, not quite in this way. They had a pro wave, which was invite only. And it was, I saw it referred to as a bracket style, but not really. It was more like a elimination style competition where they started, I believe, with 8. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 8 or 8 racers to start, and then each round that they would run it, they would drop the lowest 2 out. And then they ran 2 rounds the first day, and then the finals was on Sunday. So it was actually a 3-lap course. And so the pros ran the 3-lap course as well as the elite and open racers. So the pros had like a big money.
Just to clarify, pro is the invitational one, correct?
Yes.
And then elite is anyone, or anyone can sign up, but it's competitive prize money.
Yes, that's correct. So the pros had like a big pot. I think their grand prize was like $5,000, whereas the elite heat first place was $500. And like you said, anybody could register for elite, if you wanted to run competitively. And then they had open waves throughout the day also. And they also had a relay format as well.
Gotcha.
So there was multiple kind of events going on all at one time, and it was, all on the same course. The only thing that was different between like the pros and the elites was that the pros did not have to do the axe throw. So think kind of like of a Spartan spear throw. But it was like axes that you threw at, I guess I'll call them shields for lack of a better word. It was kind of like a hanging dinner plate made of metal. And you would throw your axe and try to hit that. And then they had like a small penalty. If you made your axe, you could basically continue on. But if you missed, you had to do a series of like 4 different walls. So that was interesting.
And Aliyah, give me some of your general impressions of running the event.
I liked the event. The only thing I wish I did the relay, because the relay they cut out the extra run and the bucket carry and the crawl, and I was like, oh man, I wish I knew they were shortening the course to do the relay, because it looked like a lot of fun, and it was pretty much almost like the 100 meters of OCR Worlds that they debuted in 2019, but it was longer than 100 meters though. And I really liked the rigs that they had. The obstacles were pretty close together in the beginning, and man, it was everyone for themselves. I mean, it usually is at the start at go, but this was, you had a wall to get over, and you have this max exodus from the start line to get over the wall, hopefully not kick the person behind you or in front of you if there was someone in front of you, to go immediately into this almost like an A-frame cargo net. I know some people who did the flip over and they kicked somebody, and it was like, someone jumped down and like landed on someone. So pretty much that beginning part was a sprint to get to the obstacles as fast as possible and to be the first person, so you could spread yourself out from the start. Or at least that was my mentality when I started. And when I was watching the men go, I was like, oh my God, it's a stampede. People are going to get trampled. But it was very exciting because I felt like it actually pushed people to go faster on the obstacles. However, I think if you were a less proficient athlete, it held other ones up who got stuck behind people.
Gotcha. What was the total distance of the race and number of obstacles ish?
Per lap. So I think the total race was just over 3 miles. Someone ran it the one day, just the up and back, and it was like 3 1/4 almost, but it was supposed to be a 5K, and it was just over. And there was 1, 2, 3, 4 obstacles pretty much right in the beginning. Then you ran, did a crawl, did the carry, ran all the way back, a rig, a hoist, the throw. And if you were repeating a lap, you went over a cargo net, but at the end, instead of the cargo net, you went over to the last rig. So I think there were 10 obstacles per lap.
Nice.
So 3 miles.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So you did 3 rigs plus a final rig, so total?
3 rigs per lap. So the main, there was a rig in the beginning, a rope climb, and another rig. There were supposed to be 4 per lap, and then a final one, but they had changed it to only 2. So there are only 2 main rigs if you eliminate the rope climb, because it's not really a rig, but that's a grip one.
Yeah.
So 2 per lap, and then a final one that you only did on your last lap. Cool. When originally, I believe the map had 3 or 4 rigs per lap.
Yeah, sounds like a great event. So, Ashley, give me a little bit about just kind of like the overall atmosphere of having a race at the beach and how the kind of like the festival area was.
Yeah, it was really cool. So most of the festival area was set up kind of more towards like the parking lot, not like right on the beach. But of course, like the finish line and like the announcer and timing and those kind of things were on the beach. But they had a really good setup. I mean, it was really easy to access parking. It was great to watch because you could see basically the entire course with the exception of like the bucket carry, which no one really needs to see anyway, from, one stationary point. So if you had family who wanted to come watch a race, that would be a great one to bring them to.
Gotcha. Cool. And then, Aliyah, tell me about any other kind of standout obstacles, what like kind of that final rig was like.
The final rig was, that's, I think, Aaron from OCR Overload. It's his pride and joy. It was PVC on PVC. So it rolled a lot. Mm. But the best part of it, because I went out to the beach Friday just to like get a lay of the land. And since you're right off the water, there's that nice breeze that blows through. And all you can see when you look at the rig is them blowing in the wind like crazy. And I was like, ooh, that's spicy. That's an extra element that people probably are not expecting, because it required, if it was windy or the wind was blowing when you were on it, it just required more precision as you went through, and hand-eye coordination for sure.
Yeah, because they were like hand-sized spinner handles is the best way. I know she said PVC on PVC, but kind of like, I don't even know how else to describe it, but like a handlebar size, you know?
Like a cable. Like if you're going to do a cable pull, like just
attachment.
your fist could fit on it.
Interesting.
Right.
Do rings, like ring monkey bars, literally go from string to one ring to one ring to one ring. It was like that, but a probably maybe 6 inches long PVC on a fabric attachment to a carabiner.
Okay. I think I got it.
And it was really interesting to watch the pros race, because they raced before the elite wave. And there was like a situation where one of the pros would have finished, you know, and not been, you know, would have made the cutoff as one of the top to continue. But she ended up falling on the rig. And I noticed, like, for example, Lindsay, when she went into the final rig, she actually did like a chicken wing technique over the spinners, basically to make sure she secured her spot, because, you know, a lot of the racers were so close that just one slip off that final rig could cost you the race. So that was really interesting to watch. And I ended up doing the chicken wing technique to make sure I secured my place at the finish as well. Especially just after watching her do it successfully, I was like, that was probably a good idea just in case. Like, I've lost too many podium spots on a final obstacle to, you know, I've learned to put aside my pride and do it the most cautious way, as opposed to, you know, doing it the best way.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
cool.
There is another Hildervat coming up actually this month on the 19th here in Florida again, but this one's in St. Cloud, which I'm happy because it's like less than an hour from me. So it's even closer than the last one.
Nice. That's hometown race. I mean, with less than an hour is like, I mean, that's super close for an OCR.
Yeah, that's great.
Aliyah, are you going to that
one? Yes, I am.
I knew the answer already.
I know. I was like, does she not know the answer? Because I know the answer.
I do know the answer, but I wasn't sure if you were going to make an announcement. So I was like, ooh, it's a mystery.
Well, let's hear an announcement. I want to hear an announcement. Let's do it.
Ashley, do you want to do the announcement? Do you want me to do the announcement?
I mean, we'll just co-do the announcement.
Okay, make it very exciting.
Yes. So we are going to do the team race.
Yeah.
Together.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Joining forces.
Team.
Is it just two person relay, or is there you have a third?
It's a 4-person relay.
A 4-person. Who's the third and fourth wheel?
Noel Medina from here in Florida.
Okay.
He is one of our men who is going to be on the team as well.
And then the other one is Chris Hoover.
Correct. Who we also saw at Battle of the Lions Dallas.
Oh, nice.
He was the super ripped guy who basically beasted everybody through that first carry. by like 200 yards.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's an epic picture of that.
I'll have to check. I don't remember it. I'll have to check it out.
Well, you probably didn't get to see it from like the starting line perspective like we did.
Oh yeah, that's true.
The women went after the men, so it was just like, oh, he's running by himself. Oh, now there's a field of men behind him.
Yeah, it was really funny. So we're going to be representing OCR Overload, which is a race here in Florida who has a race in July. The man who owns OCR Overload works with Hildervat as well. They share some obstacles. He builds for them. So there's a connection there as well.
That's cool. I really like to see like the local brands working together. I mean, it just makes so much sense for, especially if you're a brand that puts on like 1 or 2 events a year to share, marketing resources and putting booths at other people's events and sharing obstacles. Like it just makes sense to me. I don't know, but
I think that's what made Hildervat interesting, is that it joined forces with these other races. So I think it was Swamp Battle, OCR Overload, Hildervat, and I know Heidi Williams from her gym, they were bringing stuff up as well. And you have all these race directors trying to collaborate and put on a fantastic event, and you have the different perspectives, and they each probably like different things. So when you come to an event like that, you're going to get a solid mixture of obstacles, which make it very exciting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I liked about OCR Overload, is that they had different parts of the race designated to different races. So, if I wanted to know what Hildervat was like, I could run OCR Overload, and there is a section that was the Hildervat section, which is where, I had seen obstacles that we got to see before, if that makes sense.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. And I know last time Ashley was on the podcast, I can't remember what episode that was. We dove a little bit deeper into OCR Overload. So if anyone wants to go back that hasn't listened to that one, they can scroll back a couple episodes and get the full rundown. Now, speaking of brands working together, in the Midwest, we actually have some brands that work pretty well together, including one of them is Frontline OCR. And brands like Abominable Snow Race and Highlander Assault, kind of up near near the Chicago area, have been working together. And me and Aliyah went to Frontline OCR. It's kind of a little bit south of Racine, a little south of Chicago, this past weekend. So Aliyah, me and you actually ran in 2 different categories. So tell me about what's unique about the Special Forces, your category.
So the category I ran in, as you said, was Special Forces. So you ran with a 20-pound weighted vest. Instead of getting a band that you gave up for completion, it was your vest. You wore your vest, and if you ever came to an obstacle that you could not complete, you could stay there and try it as many times as you wanted. But if you didn't complete it and you wanted to move on, you had to turn in your vest. Which was, I know some people, like giving up your band and an obstacle, it just feels heart-wrenching. So giving up the vest is even more. It's not just like a band you're wearing. It's you're taking off your badge of honor for the race, because you're finishing the race without the vest, with what you started. And I know it's just hard mentally to process that. So that was that race. Or that division, which was different than yours, which was the endurance one, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I ran the endurance, so there was no vests, but we had a 5-hour time. You had to start your last lap before the 5-hour mark, and then you can take as long as you want on the 5th lap, or the 5th. After that, when you started the last lap, you take as long as you want. But what was interesting about it was actually mandatory completion, ultra OCR, which I'm trying to think if I've. Like, Conquer the Gauntlet has ones you could actually penalty out of, has about like their 4 really hard upper body ones you can penalty out of. But Frontline, there was no penalty. It was like I mean, you had a band just like a normal elite wave. And if you couldn't do an obstacle, you gave up the band, and then you're ineligible for prizes, which made it really interesting. And yeah, well, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But, their obstacles were really good. And I know I was talking to several people who've been at Frontline events before. And, the 3 people I talked to who've been to, I think they've all been to about somewhere between 3 and 5 of them, all said this year was the best year that they've seen. So I know, sometimes we go to especially a local OCR and the course isn't marked well, or you're not happy with something. I would say give brands like Frontline or brands that hold one event a year another chance if you went to one a couple of years ago and you were upset with something. But I thought the event went really smoothly. I thought the course was well marked, and I thought the obstacles were unique. So Aliyah, tell us a little about some of the obstacles that you liked or didn't like, perhaps.
Well, bouncing off of what you said, I went last year too, and I did the Special Forces Division that year as well. I will say that this year it was better. The course was marked better, and I thought it was actually a little bit harder than it was last year. Last year was a great event because it was my first one, and I wanted to go back afterwards anyway. But I thought this one trumped last year, and then last year I had a great experience there. So as far as obstacles I like I've told you before, anything with just gets my heart beating. And this one had 2 main ones. Well, I guess 3. 3 main ones, and then the one they had Valkyrie, which was at OCR Worlds.
Yeah, this was like a kind of like a mini Valkyrie, so it wasn't quite as high as like the one in
no.
Like a Battle of Alliance or the one at NORAM, but it was still, I think it was like 5 rings up maybe, and then a T-bar, and then 5 rings down ish.
Yeah, it had almost like that anchors away handle in the middle.
Right.
Now, I will say with the weighted vest, I mean, I train weighted pull-ups, so it doesn't intimidate me, but just doing that motion with the weighted vest, thinking about falling, is probably more intimidating than when you do it and it's higher and it has more rings. This one, just because you have more weight, if you fall, it's like, ooh.
Right, yeah.
But so I always liked that rig. And then the next kind of upper body one was this monkey bar one, which was similar to, totally not the same, but similar to Sawtooth. If you ever do Savage Race, that kind of goes, but this one goes flat and then incline, decline, flat. And that one was actually really funny. And for me, because there was one bar towards the end that moved when it shouldn't have moved. And there's a photo. I have this look. It's like my oh shit face. Because I went to grab it. I grabbed it with one hand, and it rotated and rolled back on me when I totally was not expecting it. And the photographer got that exact moment on camera. It's a fabulous photo. The look of terror in my face.
One of the things I really liked about that, and one of their other upper body obstacles that was kind of reminded me of Stairway to Heaven, where you used to flat boards and you kind of go up a couple rungs and then you go across, is they were all, because of the weighted vests, everything was lower to the ground, right? So you're not as high in the air as compared to some other races, which makes sense, right? Because it's going to be safer if you have a little bit of a shorter fall. So I thought that was, clever and kind of well done. But go ahead, keep going.
And then there are 2 signature ones by Race Ready Obstacles, which were fabulous. I have to hand it to them. They did have, the one was Kraken, which they had last year, and they just slightly tweaked it. This year they had a long rope in between it. They had a long PVC, so it kind of jiggles or rotates because there's a solid pole between it, and you traverse that with your, almost like if you were a bear climbing up a tree, but you're climbing horizontally to the rope. And last year, instead of a rope, they had a little short hand grip. And then you went to the spinning Kraken twister element. And I mean, I love that one because there's an element of body awareness, upper body strength, confidence, and coordination. When you move on that thing, you kind of want to have an idea of what you're going to do. Otherwise, you are going to panic and you're moving out of survival. And sometimes that thing will rotate based on how you're feeling. So if you're panicking, it's going to go faster and you might not be expecting it to turn as fast, and it could shake you off.
Yeah, if people don't know what we're talking about, it kind of looks like a segment of Twister, but instead of having handles, essentially nunchucks sticking out of the side, right? So it's a straight pipe down the middle, and then there's like essentially nunchucks sticking out in all directions.
That looks so cool.
With little knobs, and as you move, like obviously as you put weight on the next one, it'll rotate, right? So need a good grip, and I'll tell you my story about that in a minute. But yeah, tell us about the other. Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
Oh no, I was just saying it looked so cool. I like when I saw everybody's photos, I was like, man, that's an obstacle I want to try.
Yeah.
Not with the vest. Nope.
It's vest or endurance if you wanna run the competitive portion. So those are your two options.
They actually have a competitive one that is no vest.
Do they really?
Yeah, no woman finished that one.
Oh, interesting.
This year, yeah. So they have the best option, the non-best option, open, and then the endurance one that you did.
Gotcha.
Maybe I'll have to put that on the bucket list for next year.
I think
the no best option.
I think we need to bring the whole CTG team out there and run that race.
Give it a go.
I think people will really enjoy it.
Yeah, make them do the weighted vest one.
And then tell us about the other race-ready obstacle.
Well, last thing about the Kraken one is that what also made it difficult on the twisted part is that the different spokes were different lengths. They were not all the same length. Yeah. And then the other one, Vest Collector. Now, that one was significantly harder compared to last year. In comparison, I loved it. But if I was to say the biggest difference between them is the other one was, I did not think the other one was a vest collector. This one was definitely a vest collector this year. And it started out with a hose traverse. So it was a fire hose tied onto a post, tied onto another post. And you had to, it's like a Tyrolean traverse.
Yep.
You could be on top or you could be on the bottom, and you're just using your arms and your legs to go from point A to point B. And when you get to point B, it pretty much turns into a low rig. So there are several different grips. I don't think any of the grips repeated themselves except for maybe a short little rope. And anyone who was tall, this was definitely going to be challenging. It was extremely close to the ground.
Yeah.
So trying to get any momentum going, you had to make it happen from start to finish, because if you stopped in the middle, you couldn't swing your legs anywhere to get any momentum. And I thought that one was amazing. I thought it was better than the Kraken, actually. Even though a lot of people struggled on the Kraken, I thought this one was my favorite race-ready one that I've seen.
Yeah, it was well designed, and it was challenging. I was actually during endurance, I was surprised that I didn't see more people stuck at that one, because it was it was hard. You know, there was thick rope, there was a ring, there was a T-bar handle, there was kind of like the twirly bird ropes, there was a ball, there was a short rope, and there was a tiny nunchuck at the end, which I skipped every time. So I was like, hell no. Yeah, it was like slick. That thing was so slick. But yeah, and then the other obstacle, which I thought was actually surprisingly hard, was I don't know what you call it, lumberjack or hammer time is what I call it. Basically a sledgehammer, you hit a block of wood down and back. But it wasn't like the one at Conquer the Gauntlet the one they used to have was pretty slick. This one, I mean, I was like laying into this thing. It moves like an inch. You're like, come on. So I was like, I mean, on the first lap, I did that, and then you basically run around a short little area right into Kraken. And I remember my arms were, I could feel it in my arms going into Kraken on that one, on the first lap. Then I took a little more time on the additional laps. But Frontline. What's cool about Frontline is so they honor a different first responder at every event. So this one's called the Sixth Wave. It's run Memorial Day weekend every year. So they've already got 2022's date and schedule up, and you can sign up now if you want. And this year was kind of U.S. military themed. In the past, they've done like firefighter and police and EMS, and I think military before that also. So my day, for those people listening that may not know, my day job, right, is an Army Special Forces officer. So whenever I hear something is military themed, like I roll my eyes a little bit. I'm like, oh boy, like it's always over the top, and it's always too much. It's like, all right, no one actually acts like this. This is, like it's a caricature of like what people actually behave like. But when I showed up to Frontline, it was well done. I mean, it was classy. They did like the opening ceremony with the color guard, and they had actually members of the military there, and it was really respectful, and I enjoyed it. Usually I don't like the theme, but for this one, I'll give him a lot of credit. It was the race director or race owner, Ed, just did a very good job. And he's got a background in law enforcement also. So I think that's why, because he's actually part of that community. So he understands when it's like cheesy and when it's appropriately themed. But I also liked, you mentioned on the vest collector, they had a fire hose. There was a couple of obstacles like that where they incorporated something from like the first responder theme, where like, where it was like the obstacle that was basically like a bunch of fire hoses hanging down. You had to like traverse them, or they had instead of like, they had a double ammo can carry, which wasn't super heavy. But, again, it was kind of in theme and kind of appropriate. And then obviously the vests are very in theme of their whole first responder kind of image there. So, yeah. And then what were your prizes? You won I don't know if we mentioned that, you won the Special Forces Wave. So what did you win as a prize?
I won, I won a condor bag, like it was a side satchel, we'll say. Yeah. And then I won their Bangarang, their protein cupcakes. They were protein cups that could be turned into pudding, lava cake, or a cupcake through the microwave. You just add either water or milk. And they actually look pretty good. I haven't tried one yet, and they have different flavors. There's a s'mores one that I'm like itching to try that I've seen in my bag. I can't say I've unpacked yet.
Yeah, neither have I.
Especially because I'm going away to a race this weekend, so I'm like, pretty much most things are just going to stay there. And then I got a grip. So, like I said, I got the Bangarang cupcakes, containers, the Bangarang shirt, the Condor bag, and inside the Condor bag was a grip sling, raw thread. I think it's a short grip handle, pretty much like a tougher washcloth almost. Not a washcloth, but like pretty much it just hangs down and it's a grip thing. And then I got
it's like a rope. It's like it would be like what would you use as like a rope or a nunchuck training, right? So you're hanging off of this piece of fabric.
With the flexibility of a towel. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then some Mud Gear socks and another cool Condor bag. One is camo, and then the other one is an aviator bag. So it has more pockets and some other elements. Yeah, so a lot of swag, some cool swag, and this really cool plate. The plate was awesome. And it was blue, and there were different colors for first, second, and third for the men, because the women, we didn't have any second or third because they didn't have any other ones finished.
And we say
tried so hard.
When we say plate, Yeah, when you say plate, you mean the plate that goes inside your plate carrier, your actual like body armor. So it's like the shape of the body armor. It's not
It's the shape of the body armor, yes, but
it's
not
like,
that weight or that size. It almost looks
No,
like
I thought you were like eating off it.
I
like
know. That's why I clarified.
Dinner plate. I was like, okay, this is weird. Never heard of that.
That's why I clarified. Because I was like, when you say plate, I think of body armor plate, but I know most people are thinking dinner plate.
Oh,
yeah, me.
Yeah, I totally was not thinking of maybe a slate is a better word. Slate.
Nah, I mean it's because they're called plates is like the appropriate term. So that's right. So real quick story. So I was running the endurance. This season I've been kind of racing my way back into shape. This is kind of like just signing up for a lot of events to use it as a kind of as my part of my training, as part of my build up. So I came in and I was running the endurance and sitting in third, coming into the end of lap 3, where I was going to have time for 4 laps. And I got to cracking. And basically the first 2 laps, I muscled my way across. And then the third lap, after 18 miles and all the other obstacles, I could not muscle my way across anymore. So I got stuck there and, failing repeatedly. I was there for probably 40 minutes. And I've got about 15 minutes left before I run out of time to start another lap. And Jason Rulo, creator of the Neptune, comes up, makes it across, and then he's like, I'm going to get a drink, come back. He's like, I'll tell you. He's like, and then we'll stick around until you get across or until I have to leave, basically. So big shout out to him because he was giving me some tips. And I ended up doing what's kind of pissed me off personally is like I ended up getting across it the same way I get across every other upper body obstacle, which is moving sideways and matching hands. So every time I grab a hold, I put both hands on it. And I take a lot of movements, and versus on the first couple of laps, I was basically going like straight forward and kind of reaching for the Kraken bar thing. So I ended up going sideways, made it across. I mean, like I said, I've been there for 40 minutes, so my grip's completely blown out, and we decided to go for a 4th lap anyway. And we made it around. We got to the vest collector, the low rig there, and now Jason can't get across. So we're stuck there for probably, and he just spent, 20, 30 minutes hanging out with me. And I'm like, well, I can't leave him on the course. So I stuck with him for another 30 minutes. And then we made it to the Kraken again, eventually, because he made it across. And then we got to Kraken. I made it across first time on the lap 4, which, again, shows you technique matters because my grip was completely shot. There's no way I should have gotten across that on the final lap. And then he got stuck there. I had to go to, at this point, my wife's like, we need to leave. I was like, okay, because we've been there several hours past where we should have been. And so I left him, but he had some good company there, and he eventually got across. I think it was around 5:40 p.m. at night. But I give him a lot of credit. He's like, I'm not giving up my band. He's like, I've never given up my band. I'm not starting today. And I was like, you're a better man than I, Jason. I was like, I was about ready to call it at that point, but so huge shout out to him, and I definitely appreciate all the help he gave. We're going to start wrapping things up now. So before we go, tell us something people would be surprised to know about you. We'll start off with Aliyah. What do you got?
Something people would be surprised to know about me is that I actually do a lot of baking, and I've competed in a baking competition.
Oh, nice.
And I actually got first place at the first and only baking competition I did. I made a chocolate, it was a gluten-free, dairy-free cake. It was chocolate cake. It was chocolate almond icing that I made with raspberry compote in the middle and raspberries on top. And
nice.
Yeah.
Fancy.
Dang. She's just winning everything out there.
It's just multi-sport. This is the epitome of multi-sport athlete here.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I don't even have anything to share because I can't live up to that.
That's not true. You got something, Ashley.
Ashley's been on. I don't know if Ashley's got anything good left. I've brought her on a couple times.
Yeah, I totally feel like I've already bared my soul in like stories that should probably just
You don't have to share another one, but anyone listening needs to go back to the last Ashley episode and listen to the Wendy story, because it is my favorite piece of recorded podcast content we have. I laughed so hard while recording it, and then I laughed again while editing it, and then I laughed again when I listened to the own production. Like, I'm talking tears. So just go back and listen to Ashley's Wendy story on the last episode she was on. I think it was me, you, and Brenna. I think we were
yeah, and the more you laugh, the more I die inside that I actually said it out loud, and it's been like captured forever.
Yeah. So, and then I'll connect Leah. I think I don't know. I can't even remember what I've used and what I haven't used. But my wife's actually a pastry chef, like a certified pastry chef, so she can make literally anything. And as an athlete, I don't eat very many pastries, so I don't make. There's not many pastry making in my house, even though my wife can pretty much make anything. So, but yeah,
I made banana bread during the pandemic, and I got really good at it. And since we're talking baking, I'll let you guys know I made one yesterday.
Ooh.
So I didn't win a contest, but my kids will eat it, so I count that as a win.
That is a pretty big win.
that is a big, huge win.
I'll take it.
Before we get going, Leah, any people you want to thank? Friends, family, sponsors, etc.?
Yeah, well, first off, Strong as Oak, my bread and butter main team. Phoenix Race OCR, Force 5, because I have a lot of their grip stuff. And anyone who wants grips, if you use, well, you need to know how to spell my name, but code Aliyah10 gets you 10% off. Definitely worth it, because they got some awesome, awesome stuff. And you guys, thanks so much for having me, and it was a pleasure.
Yeah. Real quick question before we go. I got to ask, because I saw your jersey. It says hoops, which I'm assuming is a reference to your earrings, which I have to ask about, because it was like the first thing I noticed. I was like, this girl has some giant hoop earrings on and is running in them. So like what, I guess just a personal style choice. What's the, is there a story there, or you just like hoop earrings?
It would be more exciting if I had a story, but I do not. These are the earrings that I wear on in my daily life, and I hate sports that make me take out my earrings. And so, hey, I don't gotta take these out, and I just run in them.
Yeah.
And that it became a thing where people would actually call me hoops. I was at a race last year, War X. It's in Ohio, great race. And the group I was in, we're doing this night event. We were paired with a whole bunch of random people, and we were coming up with, we're not all going to remember each other's names. Let's pick a characteristic or something. And the one woman, her name is Pink, because she was wearing pink shorts, and she was like, you care if I call you hoops? You got them hoop earrings. I was like, nah, go for it. And then at another race, someone was like, yeah, go hoops. And they don't know each other. And so then that nickname kind of just stuck.
Nice.
And so, yeah. And you will always see me in my hoop earrings. There's only been one race where I lost one, and I knew when I lost it. It was my first North American Championship, and I ended up, I made hoop earrings out of safety pins.
Nice.
And that's how I met one of the race directors of NORAM or OCR, because I was just taking their safety pins to make earrings. Nice. Just to go on the podium, because like I feel naked without these.
That's great. Ashley, any people you need to give a shout out to before we go?
Yeah, of course. Shout out to Conquer the Gauntlet. Member of the pro team for years and years. I'm really looking forward to the 10th anniversary event this year. And then also a shout out to OCR Overload and their support for putting a team together for Hildervat coming up. So thank you very much.
Awesome. And for our listeners, head over to teamstrengthspeed.com. I just reorganized and redesigned some parts of the website. Some of it was getting kind of cluttered. So I just kind of shifted it around and added some new pages there. We also just got another order of Blegment lights in. So Blegment lights, I have all sizes, small, medium, and large. And this will be the last kind of order I made, or that's the only order I'm making for 2021. So if you need them for toughest motor, world's toughest motor, Spartan Ultra Beast, cold weather racing, etc., we now have all sizes in stock. And then I still have all the sizes in the extremes in stock. But again, those are starting to run low. Like I said, the lights, just new order came in. Other than that, my books are available off the teamstrengthspeed.com website, or if you go to Amazon and just search my name. If you haven't seen the Mudgear commercial, go check out Mudgear Made Tougher. It's on their Facebook page, or you can actually look at their YouTube page, and I think it might actually be on their website, or there's probably a link to it on their website. I think it is. Check out the Aurora Wear page, the Heated Apparel page. I think Randy Lackey is currently up on there. I was up there about a month ago. Their actual website, aurorawear.com. It's the heated jackets and vests and stuff you've seen some of us wearing over the last couple of weeks. And then if you haven't seen my fight scene that is on Bobby Ross's YouTube channel, go over to Bobby Ross's YouTube channel. Again, I'll drop a link. He has it's like a 14-minute video talking about why they screwed up Mortal Kombat movie. But embedded in there at the 5-minute, 20-second mark, there's a 3-minute fight scene. It's got super cheesy dialogue. It was just a lot of fun to shoot. And we do have an episode coming up probably at the end of next month, where me and the MMA fighter did the choreographed fight scene with her coming on, and we'll talk through some of the making of that. So just kind of a really fun experience. Go check that out. I think that's about it. And then I'll see Aliyah this weekend at Battle of the Lions, and hopefully see some of you at Battle of the Lions. And then if anyone wants to double down, KC Timber Challenge on Sunday. There's another event. That one's not competitive, but it's women only or men in drag, literally down the road from the Battle of the Lions event. So, or there's also Modus Ninjas is doing a ninja competition kind of in their gym on Sunday. And we're also doing after the Elite Wave, we're doing a little competition brought to you by Modus at Battle of the Lions. So it'll be something small. It'll use one of the Battle of the Lions obstacles. It'll kind of be like a free event to enter. There'll be some prizes from Modus. Probably entries or some of their merch. So lots of good stuff coming out. I'm dropping a bunch of links in the bio. We're running out of time. I'm going to get going. Thanks, Aliyah and Ashley, for coming on. And, we'll talk to you all.